Hello, role-playing people! In this episode we're continuing our Kupala Lore-hunt with the second book of the Transylvania Chronicles, Son of the Dragon, 1998. The very first thing I want to mention is something from the previous book. In Dark Tides Rising, we are told that Kupala remains after countless centuries of Tzimisce metamorphosist ceremonies and Koldun rites of worship. Keep this in mind and let's proceed. Son of the Dragon revolves around the embrace of Vlad Tepes because every single party in Transylvania has an interest in either embracing him or killing him. Whether we're talking about the Council of Ashes, the newly formed Camarilla, the Anarchs, who are a complete mess at this point in time, by the way, and they are on their way to forming the Sabbat, the Eastern Tzimisce, or Yorick himself. Who will embrace Vlad Tepes is the question. Canonically, during an encounter with Count Radu Bistri, the protagonists are told that the choice has been made for them and Dracula is to be embraced by Yorick, the architect and high priest of the Cathedral of Flesh. And it is at this point we are given the following information, and I quote. Speaking rather softly, he states that an invitation to the cathedral is a great honor, one not to be refused. The temple upholds the ancient practices of the ancient metamorphosist cults. Although the demon Kupala seeks to spread its tendrils of corruption through Transylvania, the ritus of the Koldun religion has maintained the purity of the land. Radu is dispassionate as he gives this description, as though his opinion of it does not really matter. And I end the quote. If you are as confused as I am right now, good, it means you've been paying attention because we have been offered conflicting information regarding the Koldun for a while now. So on the one hand, in previous books we were told Koldunism is tied to Kupala, like the demon might have taught this sorcery to the clan or is somehow cast through Kupala's own power, and the Koldun worship this entity. But on the other hand, this book tells us the Koldun religion protects the land against Kupala, and the ritus acts as a form of banishment, which is consistent with Transylvania by night. But my confusion only grows since Koldunism is now called a religion, which implies that it has a certain number of faithful members and practitioners and so on, which we know it does not from previous books. It is at best a cult. We were told mortals worship this entity as if it's a benevolent being, when in fact the Tzimisce know this entity to be some kind of evil demon, and the Koldun are effectively trying to fight against this corruption. So do the Koldun worship this entity or not? Well, if you remember in the previous book, we were told this is where the Tzimisce devolved from their spiritual past into a race of inhuman monsters. Haha! The only way this fits together, based on the information we currently have, is if there was indeed a schism between the Koldun, the spiritually awakened protectors of the land, and the metamorphosists who were tricked by Kupala into becoming greedy and obsessed horrors. So now I would just like to point out the fact that the old clan Tzimisce has been around since 1994's Dirty Secrets of the Black Hand, if I'm not mistaken. And in that book we don't hear much about the Koldun. They are not called as such, but they do fight the corruption that spreads through vicissitude, having refused such practices long ago during some mythical times. But wait, I will insist on this book a while longer since I've just checked the entry for the old clan and we are told something about their clan flaw. Finally, something about the clan flaw. And I quote, 1994, Dirty Secrets of the Black Hand, the Tzimisce Old Clan entry. Like all other Tzimisce, something deep inside them craves stability and permanence. They share a special connection to the land they claimed as their own in life. They must surround themselves with at least 2 handfuls of dirt from a land important to them in life. If they fail to do this, they cannot rest in peace and lose half their dice pools from all actions every 24 hours until down to 1 die. This weakened state continues until they rest amid their special soil once again. While many believe this weakness is tied to vicissitude, kindred who are infected with vicissitude but belong to other clans do not suffer from this weakness. Indeed, it seems to be as ancient as the clan. Interesting, very interesting, but this still leaves us with questions. The eldest is not native to these lands. Instead, he came here before the deluge, but this earth is important. So the clan flaw must have been acquired here somehow, whether it's tied to Kupala or not. Unfortunately, for now, we can't say. Really quickly, I will take you to the first volume of the Libellus Sanguinis series, which came out in 1997, in which we are told, from the perspective of a Tremere narrator, so we shouldn't count on this information too much, that there are very few Koldun left, though there were more of them at some point, and that their paths, their ways, revolve around working with spirits, binding and releasing them. Very interesting. And while this isn't directly connected to Kupala, but to the Koldun, it's still of interest to our lore hunt if we want to see both the details and intricacies and the larger picture. But let's return to Son of the Dragon for now. The protagonists are off to the city of Deva or somewhere nearby to find the Cathedral of Flesh and deliver Dracula to Yorick to be embraced. And find they do. Here we are told the following. The legion of spirits who serve Kupala poisons the earth, ravaging it to bring power to its lord and master. While fiends must sleep in the soil of their native land by night, earth that has been befouled by Kupala's servitors gives no comfort. Through Koldunism, the Tzimisce have learned how to repel this infestation, preserving the purity of their homelands in Transylvania. The most sacred night for this task is Kupala's night, which may hold other significance for young Tzimisce or characters who have played through Act 3 of Dark Tides Rising. The ceremony is performed here monthly. Near the cathedral, Kupala's strength is incredibly strong. So again, we are told that the Koldun are the enemy of Kupala, and around the places most corrupted by this demon, Koldunic rituals are held monthly to banish its spawn, so they don't have to be a yearly thing, but that is when the ritual is most effective. What happens is the characters enter the Cathedral of Flesh, and I will not go into descriptions because it is horrible. One of the features of the cathedral is the choir of broken minds that is constantly and repeatedly thinking the name Yorick in veneration to the high priest. It's really, really nasty, but can only be discovered by users of the Auspex discipline. Out of sight, out of mind, I guess. Deep inside the bowels of the cathedral, the protagonists find Yorick, who is being suspended from a web of veins and arteries. He welcomes Dracula with open arms, attempts to feed from him, and in that moment the cathedral turns against him, as if commanded, and effectively diablerizes Yorick. The protagonists are expelled, hurled or otherwise excreted outside the cathedral, and the gangrel Tiberiu, who brought them to this place, is frantically praying, "Kupala, Kupala, Kupala," saying the demon's name over and over again, just like the cathedral itself was thinking Yorick's name. So this indicates that Kupala is now in control of the Cathedral of Flesh. Not only that, but a few passages later, the reader of the book is effectively told that Kupala takes a small victory and now controls the cathedral. What actually happened? Was Kupala trying to invade Yorick's body and mind from the start and found this moment of vulnerability to be the perfect time to strike? Did Kupala try to prevent a premonition it had? Because if you remember, Kupala knows Gehenna will happen, and though it is unlikely it wants to prevent an apocalypse, it has foreseen its own destruction, so it will at least try to save itself. Other things worth mentioning from this book are that Zelios becomes aware that he needs to expand the geomantic web to Wallachia or Valachia with the help of the protagonists, since Kupala has only been bound in Transylvania and not in the other regions. So they go to Dracula's castle to inscribe runes on it. In the previous episode I mentioned this place served as inspiration for Cernog Monastery, but in this book here it is, the actual castle, and the 1,400 steps you need to climb to reach it. Apparently, this insane number of steps is a common design feature in the castles which were constructed by Zelios, who actually built most of them in Transylvania and Wallachia. What happens next is the place is attacked by Lambach, Tabak, and their horde of anarchs, but Dracula's men stake the both of them and take them to the dungeons, where Dracula effectively forces Lambach to embrace him and diablerizes Tabak. Yep. He pretty much embraces himself because he is just awesome, and as promised, lets Lambach go because undead Vlad Tepes is a voivode of his word. The book ends with the protagonists deciphering the journal of Javaniel and discovering that Solot is the progenitor of the Bali indeed. And here I thought he was a good guy with Golconda and all. Oh boy. So to conclude, we've learned that the Koldun do fight off the corruption of Kupala and that the ritual can be performed more frequently in places where the corruption is strong. They are separate from the more monstrous branch of the clan, the Metamorphosists, who are effectively playing right into the demon's plans. The Cathedral of Flesh does effectively become a vessel, one might say a living reliquary, for Kupala after the diablerie of Yorak, and Zelios needs to expand his geomantic web to Wallachia. Sweet! Next time on the Lore Hunt, we'll be having a look at, well, more Transylvania Chronicles. We still have books 3 and 4 to go. Take care, have fun, and don't forget to play.